Daniel lived at the edge of a small human settlement on the planet Elora. The planet was strange yet beautiful, with violet skies stretching endlessly, forests of crystalline trees and rivers that shimmered with silver light. Despite its beauty, Daniel often felt a quiet loneliness. Most of the settlers were busy with their work, tending farms, mining, or exploring the planet for new resources. He, however, preferred the solitude near the forest, enjoying the quiet sounds of alien wildlife and the gentle rustle of the crystal leaves. One evening, while walking near a clearing, Daniel noticed something unusual. Between two massive crystal trees, he saw a movement. At first, he thought it might be some ordinary alien creature, small and harmless, but as he approached carefully, he realized it was something else entirely. A tall, slender alien being lay on the ground, her skin shimmering faintly under the twilight. Beside her was a small child, no taller than Daniel's knee, weak and shivering. Daniel's heart clenched. The mother's breathing was shallow, and the child's tiny hands clutched at her arm as if trying to comfort her. Daniel hesitated for a moment, remembering the warnings about unknown alien species, but the fear of danger quickly gave way to compassion. "I won't hurt you," he said softly, speaking in a calm voice. The mother's eyes opened slightly, large and glowing faintly, filled with cautious intelligence. Daniel knew that whatever language they spoke, they could understand intent. He carefully knelt down and extended a small pouch of nutrient paste he carried for emergencies. Slowly, the mother's head turned toward him. She did not attack, did not flee, just studied him. The child reached out instinctively for the food. Over the next few minutes, Daniel managed to feed them both, watching carefully to make sure the mother and child did not panic. It was a delicate balance. The mother's eyes remained wary, but her body relaxed slightly as she tasted the food. The child, sensing safety, devoured the nutrients quickly, leaning against his leg. Daniel realized that he had to act quickly. The mother and child could not survive out here on their own. He gently scooped up the child and motioned for the mother to follow. Surprisingly, she rose slowly and walked beside him, keeping a cautious distance. Daniel carried them back to his small dwelling at the forest edge. The house was modest but secure, with reinforced walls and a small garden. Inside, he placed a soft mat for them to rest. The mother's glowing eyes scanned the room carefully, noting every corner and object. She seemed intelligent, aware of the surroundings, and Daniel knew he could not force her trust. He simply gave her space, offering food and water, sitting quietly nearby. The child, however, was more trusting, reaching out to touch Daniel's hand, making small cooing sounds. Over the next several days, Daniel settled into a routine. Each morning, he would prepare food, gently calling to the mother and child, guiding them to the dining area. He observed the mother teaching her child how to respond to light signals from the windows and small gestures he used. The child mimicked Daniel's movements almost instantly, and the mother seemed pleased, letting out soft melodic sounds that Daniel could not understand, but interpreted as approval. Daniel found himself smiling more than he had in months. The loneliness he had felt seemed to vanish slowly with each passing day. One afternoon, while Daniel was repairing the outer fence, he noticed the mother standing at the edge of the garden. She held the child in her arms and looked at him. For the first time, Daniel felt something deeper, a connection beyond mere trust. He waved gently and she tilted her head, acknowledging him. The child wriggled in her arms and reached out, touching Daniel's hand. Daniel's heart warmed. He realized that these aliens had come to rely on him, just as he had begun to rely on them for companionship. Despite the growing bond, Daniel remained cautious. He knew that the settlement authorities would not allow alien beings to live freely among humans. They would be taken, studied, or worse. Daniel decided to keep their presence a secret. He reinforced the hidden shelter in the back of his garden, camouflaged with crystal foliage from the forest. There, the mother and child could rest safely, hidden from prying eyes. He learned to communicate with them through gestures, simple signals, and tones of voice. They began to respond, understanding him in ways that surprised him. One night, Daniel sat outside the shelter, gazing at the twin moons rising above the forest. The mother and child played nearby, chasing shadows cast by the moonlight. Daniel felt a strange sense of peace. He had spent his life following rules, obeying orders, and living in predictable routines. But this, caring for being so different, sharing unspoken understanding, and forming a connection without words, was something entirely new. He realized that he wanted this to continue, not just for a few days, but indefinitely. Days turned into weeks. Daniel's bond with the mother and child strengthened. The mother learned to trust him fully, even allowing him to help bathe the child and tend to minor injuries. The child, now more playful and confident, would run to Daniel whenever he appeared, climbing onto his shoulders or holding his hand while exploring the garden. Daniel marveled at how quickly they had adapted to life among humans despite the challenges. He often wondered about their home planet, their culture, and whether they had other family members. But he never pressed. He only wanted to ensure their survival and happiness for the moment. One morning, a loud noise startled the forest. Daniel looked up to see a patrol of settlers walking near his property. Panic surged through him. He rushed to the shelter, ushering the mother and child inside, praying they would remain calm. The patrol approached but seemed distracted and moved on. Daniel exhaled deeply, realizing how fragile their safety was. From that day, he became more vigilant, adding extra layers of security and teaching the mother and child simple signals to hide quietly if needed. Despite the constant vigilance, Daniel felt happier than he had in years. The alien mother had begun mimicking human expressions, tilting her head in curiosity, smiling subtly, and even laughing quietly with her child. The child's laughter was contagious, echoing through the small garden and making Daniel chuckle often. For the first time, he felt needed, appreciated, and connected in ways he never imagined possible. He had created a small family, unusual and fragile but full of life and hope. One evening, under the glow of the twin moons, Daniel sat near the shelter as the mother and child played in the soft light. The wind rustled the crystal leaves gently, casting shimmering patterns on the ground. He watched the child stumble and the mother reach out to steady him. Daniel realized that he could no longer imagine his life without them. His feelings were no longer just about kindness or duty. They were about love, protection, and the desire to keep them near forever. He did not know if they understood his feelings, but he hoped the bond they had formed was strong enough to convey his emotions. As he looked at them, Daniel silently made a promise. He would do everything in his power to keep them safe. He would teach them, protect them, and make a home for them on this strange planet. And perhaps one day he would have the courage to ask them something he had never dared before, to stay with him forever. Night fell, painting the sky in deep indigo and purple. Daniel returned to his small home, checking the shelter one last time before sleep. The mother lay beside her child, both breathing softly and peacefully. Daniel smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest he had never known. The days of feeding them, protecting them, and forming a silent bond had led to this moment, a quiet, hopeful sense that life could be more than mere survival. Life could be shared, cherished, and lived with beings he had once thought too alien to understand. And as he drifted to sleep, Daniel imagined a future where the three of them lived together in harmony. A future where the strange alien world around him no longer felt lonely. A future where connection, trust, and care could overcome any distance between species. He did not yet know how the story would continue, but for the first time in his life, he was ready to face it with hope and courage. The morning after the storm had passed, Daniel walked to the shelter with cautious steps. The ground was wet and muddy, the crystal trees glistening with tiny droplets that reflected the twin sun's light. The storm had shaken him, and he feared that it might have frightened the alien mother and child. When he opened the door, relief washed over him. The mother sat calmly, her child playing beside her with a small stick, making patterns in the damp soil. They were unharmed, safe, and alive. Daniel exhaled deeply, kneeling down to gently lift the child. The child giggled, a sound so pure and joyous that Daniel felt his heart lift. The storm had brought something new. He noticed that the mother now seemed to watch him differently. Her glowing eyes followed him not just with caution but with a quiet trust. She allowed him to help the child into a small pool of water he had prepared for morning hygiene. As the child splashed and laughed, the mother moved closer, brushing droplets from her child's face with gentle fingers. Daniel observed them, feeling a warmth in his chest he had never felt before. He realized the bond they shared was no longer just survival. It was something deeper, a connection that crossed the boundaries of species. For days, Daniel continued his routine of feeding, teaching, and caring for them. But something had shifted. The mother began to mimic his gestures, bringing small objects to him, placing them near his hands as if offering thanks. The child began to imitate human expressions, trying to smile just as Daniel did, and laughing when he made funny faces. It was a simple, innocent connection, yet profoundly moving. Daniel began to speak softly to them, telling stories about the forest, the stars, and the humans who lived in the settlement. He did not know if they understood words, but they listened, tilting their heads and watching him with rapt attention. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Daniel decided to take them outside the shelter. He led them to a small clearing where the grass shimmered under the moon's light. The child ran ahead, kicking up sparkling dew with tiny feet, while the mother followed at a slower pace, her eyes scanning the forest carefully. Daniel felt a thrill of happiness watching them. The forest had once been a place of loneliness, but now it was alive with laughter and gentle sounds. He realized that in caring for them, he had found a new purpose, a reason to live beyond his own needs. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel's connection with the mother and child deepened. He began to notice subtle gestures, the way the mother would place a hand near his chest when he approached, as if recognizing him as part of their family. The child would run to him whenever he appeared, climbing onto his shoulders or holding his hand while exploring the surroundings. Daniel marveled at how quickly they adapted to his world, and he in turn adapted to theirs. He learned to communicate through gestures, facial expressions, and soft sounds. They were learning him as much as he was learning them. One night, while sitting under the glowing sky, Daniel watched the mother and child sleep. The mother had wrapped her long arms around the child protectively, their breathing calm and even. Daniel realized that he did not want this bond to end. The thought of losing them, whether to discovery by other humans or some unforeseen danger, filled him with unease. For the first time, he felt the need to express something he had never dared before. He wanted them to stay with him, not just for a few days, but forever. The following day, Daniel prepared a small feast, gathering fruits, vegetables, and protein-rich nutrients for them. He arranged it carefully in the shelter and invited them to join him. As they ate, he gently touched the child's hand and then the mother's arm. They responded with soft movements, leaning closer, accepting his presence fully. Daniel took a deep breath. He knelt down, looking into the mother's glowing eyes, and spoke softly. "I want you to stay, not just for now, but forever. Will you?" The mother paused, her eyes reflecting the twin suns outside. She did not speak in words, but she tilted her head and reached out, touching Daniel's hand. The child, sensing the meaning, clung to him joyfully. It was a moment of understanding, unspoken but clear. Daniel felt a rush of relief and happiness. The bond they had formed was mutual, and it was strong enough to transcend words. From that day, life became a rhythm of shared activities and growing affection. Daniel taught the mother and child more about human ways, showing them how to tend a small garden, how to recognize edible plants, and how to navigate the nearby settlement safely. The mother taught Daniel about her species, showing him patterns in the forest, ways to listen to the wind, and methods of silent communication. The child watched and learned eagerly, bridging the gap between the two worlds. One afternoon, while exploring the forest, Daniel and the aliens discovered a small grove filled with rare crystal flowers that shimmered in all colors of the spectrum. The mother picked a few and handed them to Daniel. Though he could not understand her words, he felt the gesture as a gift, a symbol of trust and acceptance. Daniel smiled and placed the flowers in his dwelling, where they would brighten their home and remind him of the bond they shared. As time passed, the settlement began to change subtly around Daniel. People noticed his renewed energy, his lighter step, and his frequent smiles. Some wondered why he spent so much time near the forest, but Daniel never revealed the secret of his companions. He knew that this bond was fragile and precious, and he would protect it at all costs. One evening, Daniel took the mother and child to the clearing where they had first explored together. The twin moons rose above them, casting soft light on the grass. He watched them play, their laughter echoing through the forest, and felt a profound sense of peace. He realized that they had become more than companions, they were family. The mother's eyes met his, and he saw the trust, affection, and recognition that confirmed it. The child ran to him, hugging his leg, and Daniel knelt to embrace both of them. The future was uncertain. There were dangers, from humans who might not understand their bond to the challenges of living on a distant planet. But Daniel no longer feared loneliness. He had found a family, and together they could face whatever came their way. He had learned that courage was not just about facing enemies, but about opening one's heart, forming connections, and trusting that love could overcome fear. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Daniel's home transformed into a sanctuary where human and alien lives coexisted peacefully. He built small shelters for the mother and child, blending human and alien designs to create comfort for all of them. They shared meals, explored the forest, and watched the stars together. Daniel often reflected on how a chance encounter had changed his life completely. He had started by feeding them, worried for their survival, but it had grown into a deep, unbreakable bond. One night, as the moon shone brightly, Daniel sat with the mother and child on a small hill overlooking the forest. The child pointed at the stars, making soft sounds, and the mother mirrored his actions. Daniel reached out, holding both of their hands. He felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He realized that by opening his heart to being so different from himself, he had discovered the true meaning of family, trust, and connection, and so life continued. Each day a mixture of discovery, care, and joy. Daniel, the alien mother, and the child had formed a bond that could not be broken by distance, fear, or difference. They had chosen each other not by obligation but by love and mutual trust. The forest, once a place of solitude, had become a home filled with laughter, learning, and warmth. Daniel often thought about the future, imagining what challenges might come, what new wonders they might discover, and how their bond would grow stronger with each passing day. But he never worried alone. He had his family beside him, and that was enough. They had survived storms, fears, and uncertainties, and they had done so together. For Daniel, the alien mother, and the child, life had become something extraordinary, a testament to the power of compassion, courage, and the bonds that connect all living beings, no matter how different they may seem. And under the twin moons of Elora, as the wind whispered through the crystalline trees, Daniel knew with certainty that they would stay together forever. They had found in each other a home, a family, and a love that transcended worlds.